Hi, my name is Karen, and I'm an American lay student of Ajahn Suchat, or Pra Ajahn Suchat Abhijato, who has given me the very special honor of being asked by him to record this book for you. This book was written by Pra Ajahn Suchat's own teacher, the Venerable Acariya Mun Nanasampanno, and is a spiritual biography written by him about his teacher, the Venerable Acariya Mun Biography. The title of the book is Venerable Acariya Mun Biography, a spiritual biography by Acariya Mun Nanasampanno, and it was published in 2005, translated into English by Bhikkhu Dick Silaratano. If you would like to learn how to download or get a hard copy of this book, or a list of which pages or chapters are read on each separate recording, please listen to the beginning of the first recording of this book. This book, in any form, is to be given away for free. Any ads you may see or hear in this recording have been put there by the platform you are using to listen or view with, for its own revenue, in exchange for letting us use their platform for free. Please forgive me for any mispronunciations of names, places, or words, as I'm still learning how to pronounce Thai and Pali, and for any background noises, as I'm just making these recordings in my apartment with an unruly dog and in the middle of a city. We are resuming today Chapter 1, page 4, with the subtitle, The Prophecy. When Acariya Mun first began practicing Vipassana at Acariya Sao's center, he meditated constantly, internally repeating the word Buddho, the recollection of the Buddha, as he preferred this preparatory Dhamma theme above all others. In the beginning, he failed to experience the degree of calm and happiness that he expected, which caused him to doubt whether he was practicing correctly. Despite his doubt, he didn't flag in his persistent use of the word Buddho, and eventually his heart developed a certain measure of calm. One night he had a dream. He walked out of a village and entered a large, dense jungle overgrown with tangled undergrowth. He could hardly find a way to penetrate it. He struggled to find his way through this vast thicket until he finally emerged safe at the other end. When he came out, he found himself at the edge of an immense field that stretched as far as the eye could see. He set out resolutely, walking across this field until he happened to come across a huge fallen jati tree. Felled long ago, its trunk was partially embedded in the ground, and most of its bark and sapwood had already rotted away. He climbed upon this giant jati log and walked along its full length. As he walked, he reflected inwardly. He realized that this tree would never grow and sprout again. He compared this with his own life, which would certainly not rise again in any future existence. He identified the dead jati tree with his own life in samsara. Seeing that the tree had rotted away, never to root and spring to life again, he reckoned that by keeping up his diligent practice, he would surely find a way to reach a definitive conclusion to his own life in this very existence. The vast expanse of open field symbolized the nature of the never-ending cycle of birth and death. As he stood on the log contemplating this, a broad white stallion trotted up and stood next to the fallen jati tree. As it stood there, Acariya Mun felt an urge to ride it. So he mounted the mysterious horse, which immediately raced off at full gallop. He had no idea where he was being taken or why. The horse just continued galloping at full speed without showing any obvious sign of direction or purpose. The distance it traveled across the vast field seemed immeasurable. As they strode along, Acariya Mun saw a beautiful Tipitaka cabinet in the distance, adorned with exquisite silver trim. Without guidance, the horse led him directly to the enclosed bookcase, and came to a halt right in front of it. The moment Acariya Mun dismounted with the aim of opening the cabinet, the white stallion vanished without a trace. As he stepped toward the bookcase, he noticed that it was standing at the very edge of the field with nothing in the background but more of the dense jungle, entangled and smothered with undergrowth. He saw no way of penetrating it. When he came to the Tipitaka cabinet, he reached out to open it, but before he had a chance to discover the contents inside, he woke up. This was a dream nimitta, an omen confirming his belief that if he persevered in his efforts, he would undoubtedly discover a path for attaining what he sought. From then on, with renewed determination, Acariya Mun meditated intensively, unrelenting in his efforts to constantly repeat Bhutto as he conducted all his daily affairs. At the same time, he very carefully observed the austere Dhutanga practices which he undertook at the time of his ordination, and continued to practice for the rest of his life. The Dhutangas he voluntarily undertook were wearing only robes made from discarded cloth, not accepting robes directly offered by lay supporters, going on alms round every day without fail, except those days when he decided to fast, accepting and eating only food received in his alms bowl, never receiving food offered after his alms round, eating only one meal a day, never eating food after the one meal, eating only out of the alms bowl, never eating food that is not inside the one vessel, living in the forest, which means wandering through forested terrain, living and sleeping in the wilds, in the mountains or in the valleys, sometimes spent living under a canopy of trees, in a cave, or under an overhanging cliff, and wearing only his three principal robes, the outer robe, the upper robe, and the lower robe, with the addition of a bathing cloth, which is necessary to have nowadays. Acariya Mun also observed the remainder of the 13 Dhutanga practices when circumstances were convenient, but he upheld the above 7 routinely until they became integrated into his character. They became so much a part of him that it would be difficult to find one who is his equal these days. On his own accord, he showed earnestness in finding meaning in everything he did. He never approached his duties half-heartedly. His sincere aim always was to transcend the world. Everything he did was directed toward the noble effort of destroying the kilesas within himself. Due to this sense of purpose, he allowed no hiding room in his heart for arrogance and conceit, despite being exposed to the same defiling influences as was everyone else. In one respect, he differed markedly from the average person. Instead of allowing his mind free rein for the kilesas to trample all over, he always put up a fight, attacking them at every opportunity. Later, when he felt confident that he had developed a sufficiently solid foundation in his meditation, he investigated the dream nimitta. Turning his attention to the dream, he analyzed it until he gradually comprehended its full meaning. He saw that ordaining as a monk and practicing the Dhamma properly was equivalent to raising the level of the citta beyond the poisons of the world. The dense and tangled jungle, where dangers of every kind await to ambush, was the analogy for the citta, a repository of pain and misery. The citta must be lifted until it reaches the vast, wide-open expanse, a sphere of ultimate happiness and freedom from all fear and concern. The majestic white stallion symbolized the path of practicing Dhamma. He rode the horse as the means of transport to the realm of complete contentment, where he encountered the beautiful Tipitaka cabinet with an exquisite design. Able only to look upon it, he lacked the spiritual perfection necessary to secure the cabinet's opening and admire its library to its heart's content. A feat accomplished only by one who has acquired Chatu Patisambhidhanana. A person endowed with this fourfold knowledge is renowned throughout the three worlds for his brilliant wisdom and his comprehensive knowledge of teaching methods extensive as the sea and sky. Such a one is never at a loss when teaching devas and humans. Because Acariya Mun lacked a sufficiently high level of spiritual perfection, he was denied the opportunity to open the cabinet and had to be content with simply admiring its beauty. Consequently, he would attain only the level of Patisambhidhanusasana, meaning that he had sufficient wisdom and expository skills to elucidate to others the basic path of Buddhist practice, but not its entire breadth and depth, although he humbly stated that his teaching was merely sufficient to show the way. Those who witnessed his practice and heard the profound Dhamma that he taught throughout his life were so deeply impressed that no words can describe it. It would certainly be difficult to witness or hear anything comparable in this day and age, an age much in need of such a noble person. The next section begins on page 8 and is titled The Sign. At one point during his meditation training at Wat Pa, Acariya Mun's citta converged into a state of calm, and a vision arose spontaneously. The mental image was of a dead body laid out before him, bloated, oozing pus, and seeping with bodily fluids. Vultures and dogs were fighting over the corpse, tearing into the rotting flesh and flinging it around, until what remained was all scattered about. The whole scene was unimaginably disgusting, and he was appalled. From then on, Acariya Mun constantly used this image as a mental object to contemplate at all times, whether sitting in samadhi, walking in meditation, or engaging in other daily activities. He continued in this manner until one day the image of the corpse changed into a translucent disk that appeared suspended before him. The more he focused intensely on the disk, the more it changed its appearance without pause. The more he tried to follow, the more it altered its form, so that he found it impossible to tell where the series of images would end. The more he investigated the visions, the more they continued to change in character ad infinitum. For example, the disk became a tall mountain range where Acariya Mun found himself walking, brandishing a sharp sword and wearing shoes. Then a massive wall with a gate appeared. He opened the gate to look inside and saw a monastery where several monks were sitting in meditation. Near the wall, he saw a steep cliff with a cave where a hermit was living. He noticed a conveyance shaped like a cradle and hanging down the face of the cliff by a rope. Climbing into the cradle-like conveyance, he was drawn up to the mountain peak. At the summit, he found a large Chinese junk with a square table inside and a hanging lantern that cast a luminous glow upon the whole mountain terrain. He found himself eating a meal on the mountain peak, and so on and so forth, until it was impossible to see an end to it all. Acariya Mun said that all the images he experienced in this manner were far too numerous to recall. For a full 3 months, Acariya Mun continued to meditate in this way. Each time when he dropped into samadhi, he withdrew from it to continue his investigation of the translucent disk, which just kept giving him a seemingly endless series of images. However, he did not receive enough beneficial results from this to be convinced that this was the correct method. For after practicing in this manner, he was oversensitive to the common sights and sounds around him. Pleased by this and disappointed by that, he liked some things and hated others. It seemed that he could never find a stable sense of balance. Because of this sensitivity, He came to believe that the samadhi which he practiced was definitely the wrong path to follow. If it were really correct, why did he fail to experience peace and calm consistently in his practice? On the contrary, his mind felt distracted and unsettled, influenced by many sense objects that it encountered, much like a person who had never undergone any meditation training at all. Perhaps the practice of directing his attention outwards toward external phenomena violated the fundamental principles of meditation. Maybe this was the reason he failed to gain the promised benefits of inner peace and happiness. Thus, Acariya Mun came to a new understanding about himself. Instead of focusing his mind on external matters, he brought his citta back inside, within the confines of his own physical body. From then on, his investigations were centered only on his own body. Keeping a sharp mindfulness, he examined the body from top to bottom, side to side, inside out, and throughout, every body part and every aspect. In the beginning, he preferred to conduct his examinations while walking in meditation, pacing back and forth in deep thought. Sometimes he needed to rest his body from these exertions, so he sat in samadhi for a while, though he absolutely refused to let his citta converge into its habitual state of calm. Rather, he forced it to stay put within the body's domain. The citta had no other choice but to travel around the many parts of the body and probe into them. When it was time for him to lie down, the investigation continued inside his mind until he fell asleep. He meditated like this for several days until he felt ready to sit in samadhi and try to attain a state of calm with his newly discovered method. He challenged himself to find out what state of calm the citta could attain. Deprived of peace for many days now, and having begun the intense training associated with body contemplation, his citta converged rapidly into a calm state with unprecedented ease. He knew with certainty that he had the correct method, for when his citta converged this time, his body appeared to be separated from himself. It seemed to split into two at that moment. Mindfulness was enforced during the entire time, right to the moment that the citta dropped into samadhi. It didn't wander and waver about as it had previously. Thus, Acariya Mun was convinced that his newfound method was the right one for the preliminary work of meditation practice. From then on, he continued to religiously practice body contemplation until he could attain a state of calm whenever he wanted. With persistence, he gradually became more and more skilled in this method until the citta was firmly anchored in samadhi. He had wasted 3 whole months chasing the disk and its illusions, but now his mindfulness no longer abandoned him, and therefore he was no longer adversely affected by the influences around him. This whole episode clearly shows the disadvantages of not having a wise teacher to guide one. Misjudgments occur without timely advice and direction in meditation. Acariya Mun was a perfect example of this. Having no teacher can lead to costly mistakes that can easily harm the meditator, or at the very least, delay his progress. And we're going to end there today. We're in the middle of page 10. It happens to be a good place to stop even though we're in the middle of the page, because it kind of takes a different direction in the next paragraph. So I'll see you next time with metta. Bye-bye.